How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs beat writer for On SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in. As today we continue on with our positional group depth charts. As you might remember from yesterday, we dissected the tight end room, which features Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Robert Tonyan, and Jared Wiley, among others. But going into this video, today's topic, we're going to be talking about and breaking down the linebacker room that the Kansas City Chiefs have. And, in my humble opinion, and from what I've seen throughout the training camp aspect of things, as well as, the offseason for every NFL team, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've got a really good linebacker room. And I think that they're going to kind of be the center stone of make or break season for the defensive side of the ball in Kansas City. So without further ado, let's start breaking down some of these depth charts for the defensive room of the linebacker. So let's start off. I can't think of a better way to start off and talk about, in my opinion, the heart and soul of the defense, a guy who the Kansas City Chiefs brought back this season on an extension, that is, and that's Nick Bolton. I've talked about Nick Bolton several times on the podcast before. Man, Nick Bolton, he's great. It was a great move that the Kansas City Chiefs were able to extend him. He's been a leader since he's gotten here. He's only developed and turned into a bigger leader since he's learned the game of football a little bit more at the professional level. He's a guy that I do think that, if the Chiefs didn't bring him back, this linebacker room would have been very concerning. Out of the 4 seasons that he's played, which I've touched on several times before, he has totaled over 100 total tackles. And, while he hasn't necessarily been a big player thus far in the preseason games, he doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be a player that needs to step forward or prove himself in the preseason when week 1 is very close, right around the corner against a divisional rival. If you want to see some really good defense come week 1, you got to have Nick Bolton be healthy. So I understand why the Chiefs have, at least through the first 2 preseason games, have been kind of inching him along. But I do think that he's a strong leader. He's a guy that if he's healthy, he's going to once again be a factor on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. Another guy that we've touched on before in expectations that series that we did well before training camp, Drue Tranquill. Man, he's going into his final year with the Kansas City Chiefs, a veteran, and he has matched Nick Bolton in terms of how he's played in the past. Now, we've seen that Drue Tranquill, he has been a guy that's been able to surpass the 1,000, that would be insane, 100 total tackle mark. But that was also with the Chargers in his last season of his rookie campaign. He's joined Kansas City, been in Kansas City since 2023, has seen at least in his first year, he saw his production drop. Then last year, he took a step forward, 6 shy of total tackles to get into the century mark once again. But I think that he's a guy that, if he's on, he's kind of like the 1-2 punch next to Nick Bolton in the linebacker room. Yeah, he's a really good leader. Yeah, he's a really good football player. And what could be his final year in Kansas City, depending on how the front office wants to attack that financially, it's got to be a good season. Because if you think about it, he's not only auditioning or trying out for the Chiefs team next season, but if he doesn't want to come back to Kansas City, he could go elsewhere, and a contender would be lucky to have him should he have another strong season. Last year, he had 54 solo tackles. He had 2 quarterback sacks and 7.5 stuffs. He was a guy, was forcing fumbles, fumble recovery. He's, a reliable guy. Everything that you need out of your veteran players out on the defense. Former 4th-round pick. This guy, he's special. And I do think that he, alongside Nick Bolton, they're kind of the 1-2 punch that the Chiefs are going to need up front. Along with that, you've got Leo Chenal. Leo Chenal, what a criminally underrated player, in my opinion. I think that he has been solid since he has donned a Chiefs uniform. He has played in every regular season game. He's seen his improvements. Last season, he had 5.5 stuffs. A year before, he had 8. He totaled once again in the 60 mark for his total tackle on the season. And he was an asset in the postseason as well. He had 10 total tackles. 7 of them were solo. He had 2 stuff yards. He's a guy that I do think that is a young guy that the Kansas City Chiefs should be looking to extend into the future. He's a guy who's on his final season of his rookie contract. Excuse me there. And I do think that if he has a good season, he's going to be another guy that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to want next to Nick Bolton or in the same room as him for the future. Now, once you get into the other linebackers that they have, there's a lot of things that could go really well, but there's also some things that could go, need some adjusting. Cam Jones, he's been a player that the Chiefs have had for the past 2 seasons, using as a depth piece. But I do think, he's still on the roster. He's been able to stand out and make a way in here. He's a good backup. He's a good guy that you can toss in there should need be. He's also got a undrafted free agent in Brandon George. He's another guy who's been kind of standing out thus far. And I say standing out in terms of his statistics in the preseason. And I understand that the preseason is the preseason, and a lot of these guys are still fighting for their chance at having a roster spot on the Chiefs come week 1. I think Brandon George, he's been a guy who's, he's got some upside, and hopefully he can prove those that and everybody wrong for not drafting him. While he might not be on the same level as the other starters thus far, he's still a rookie going into this season. I think that he's got the pieces that he's going to be able to hopefully stand out. But they've also got a strong depth piece in the Kansas City Chiefs 5th-round draft pick from 2025 NFL Draft. Jeffrey Bassa, if you remember a few days ago, I described and broke down everything that you need to know about Jeffrey Bassa. He's been impressive since trying to find his footing in the NFL and kind of proving everybody, hey, I'm a good draft pick. And if you're going to keep paying attention to the offensive additions, I'm going to give you a reason to pay attention to the defensive positions that were drafted. I think that he's a strong Swiss Army knife type of guy, which I've alluded to several times in the past. And I think that he's going to be a good addition to this linebacker room should Steve Spagnuolo toss him out there for a few reps. You also got Jack Cochran. He's a guy, Chiefs legend, so to say. He's seen his fair share of good and bad seasons. His best season was obviously back in 2023, where he played in 17 games, had 28 total tackles, 21 of them were solos. And I think that he's a guy that, if given a lot of opportunities, if not on the field, he's going to be a leader in that linebacker room. Something that the Chiefs are going to have to need moving forward. But all in all, ladies and gentlemen, the linebacker room for the Kansas City Chiefs, while it might be sneaky with the 3-headed monster up front with Bolton, Chenal, and Tranquil, they got some strong depth pieces that could turn into guys that they would have to rely on if in a do-or-die situation. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, be sure you tune in tomorrow as we break down some more positional depth charts as we get closer to the final preseason game against the Chicago Bears before they face off against the Chargers in week 1. As always, I am Dominic Minchella. Be sure to follow me over on X at Dom Minchella. I post and repost every single day. You're not going to want to miss any Kansas City Chiefs coverage as we get closer to the regular season. Be sure to also drop us a follow over on X on our total page at KC Chiefs on SI, where everything is posted, published, and exclusively free to you, the viewer. Kansas City Chiefs on SI is a place to get your podcasts as well as your Kansas City Chiefs news. As always, I'm Dominic Minchella. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you tomorrow.